personally why I've switched from the Republican Party to voting Democrat this year is Donald Trump and January 6th.
All right, we got one more caller in. Andrew. Thanks so much. Can you hear me, sir?
I can. Sorry, I was listening to the stream on loud, so I had made sure that I was ready to go.
Thank you. Hey, so what's on your mind tonight?
Oh, no, just, disagreeing. You had your VP debate call-in show.
Yeah.
Just listen to the last listener. How many rubles are you getting paid after that one?
No, you know me, man. The problem is here in rural Pennsylvania, it's hard to find an exchange market. So, I don't know. I just keep them as sort of souvenirs. The true story, I had a friend when I got married who travels a lot overseas. And so for a wedding gift, he gave me a bunch of like really low denomination currency that he's gotten from like Mongolia and some other countries. And then as the real monetary gift, he gave me a check, but he forgot to fill out the check. So I thought it was like a humorous joke, like, it's a bunch of money that's basically worthless in a blank check. I thought it was funny. And then like 7 months later, he got in touch with me. He's like, did I forget to like sign him out on that check? And I was like, well, yeah, I didn't give a shit. He's like, I feel like such an asshole. I just stiffed you. I was like, oh, I don't give a shit. I thought it was funny. But right. Yeah, I've received no fiduciary compensation from Russia or any other country. The only money I've ever got in parts of any of my politicking or streaming are super chats, subscriptions, and things like that. So no rubles for this guy. And Casimir is no Russian, I assure you.
Interesting. I was just listening to the back and forth between the last two callers. It's pretty cool that you do this call-in show and you have this opportunity for people to talk to you. So what is your, I responded to your tweet. Obviously you think JD Vance won the debate last night. I'm curious to find out why you have that take, and I guess we can start there.
Because he was better in three phases. He was better objectively with a matter of sort of the facts that were presented there and how it came off to the people. He wins on that, the substantive area of the debate. He wins optically. Walz comes off as nervous. Vance came across as very likable. Walz was even agreeing with him many times. He wasn't the weird demon that the media and the Democrats have tried to portray him as. And so he came across as far more confident, as even you see many Democrats acknowledging. But the third and most important reason is because these debates aren't about who objectively wins in a sort of, factual manner, who wins on the substance. It's about having a goal and trying to achieve it. The goal for Walz was to try to paint J.D. Vance as being the yes man to Donald Trump, who is a crazy authoritarian dictator that wants to take away women's right to choose and will end democracy as we know it. He didn't do a very good job of that. Even you see Democrats that are acknowledging that they think that he should have attacked him way more. I don't think he did a good job of that. The goal of J.D. Vance was to finally label a Harris-Walz administration or campaign that's basically been all but hiding from the American people, to label them as what they were, which is just an extension of the Biden administration. They're trying to run a campaign of change when they're the de facto incumbents. And I think J.D. Vance won that argument about as flawlessly as you can. Every single time that he said Harris is the current administration, she's been there, why didn't she do all of these things? There is zero pushback from Walz that she's not the policies of the Biden administration. And then Vance goes even further to say, if this election is about the record of Donald Trump for 4 years versus the record of Kamala Harris, how are you with the issues that most people care about? The economy, it was better under Trump. How are you with the border? It was better under Trump. How were you with foreign policy? The world was peaceful, now it's on fire. So I think in all three of those aspects, Vance clearly wins.
So it was optically incompetent, the fact that J.D. Vance attacked the campaign, and then the fact that he focused on Vice President Harris's responsibility for the situation.
I said that he won the substantive portion of the debate, the substantive things they were talking. He won the optic portion of the debate, and he won the strategic portion of the debate where he was able to achieve his goal where Walz was unable to.
Okay, so I disagree with that. So obviously J.D. Vance is well-versed in debate. He's been doing it his entire political career. He went to Yale to become a lawyer. I even said this when I was reacting to it, that on presentation, J.D. Vance is going to sound better because he's more experienced with the debate structure itself. I mean, this is Tim Walz' very first national debate. He wasn't in there really to attack J.D. Vance. He was more in there to relay the policies and principles of Kamala Harris, and I actually think he did a very good job of that. I think Tim Walz stumbled in the early portion of the debate in the first question because it was a very loaded question. I mean, if me and you were asked that Middle Eastern question, me and you would likely stumble on this. I would admit to that. Like,
I'm a pretty good debater.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly. So I know for a fact.
How could you not know that question was coming, given that there was an attack that day? That would have been the first question that I was prepared for. So I don't agree with the, your.
But it's I feel it though. But he wasn't also prepared for the same day news of China. So it showed for both instances that while the news was coming out for the day, I mean he was prepared to relay Kamala Harris's policies and legislation.
Not to interrupt you, but I'm unaware. What same day news of China?
Oh, because it came out in Minnesota News, Tim Walz and being in China in 1989.
The Tiananmen Square. So, I'm sorry. I thought it was referenced. I was like, holy shit, China's connected to Iran or something with this.
No. I
misunderstood.
No. Yeah, I'm referring to the two instances where I'd say that like Tim Walz was like weak, but it's kind of connected in the same sense that the news came out like right before the debate had started. So like to process that, I think again Tim Walz stumbled a little bit at the start, but he brought it home at the very end of his argument. What he was trying to relay that we're through coalition building and what the Biden administration has been able to do with allies, they're going to be able to directly address those situations in the Middle East. Also, one of your points of Kamala Harris is I just fundamentally disagree with that because Kamala Harris is the vice president. This is not her cabinet. It is Joe Biden's cabinet.
When did Walz say that?
Joe Biden's positions. Say again?
When did Walz say that?
No, I'm disagreeing with your second point.
Oh, no, what you're doing is what you want to have a debate about whether or not the things I'm saying that I believe about Kamala Harris being connected to the Biden administration.
No, these are your debate points.
My point is, you apparently, this is what I thought you were doing. You were going to say that you thought that Walz won the debate, and now you're making arguments that Walz never made. Walz all but conceded that Kamala Harris was there and it was her administration. He all but conceded that. So for you saying
when did he do that?
Every single time that J.D. Vance said Harris has been there, Harris is part of this administration, she was there. There was zero pushback.
I believe he didn't push back because it's not her administration.
But he didn't push back. So you just say so your argument is everybody knows that's not true, so he doesn't even have to respond? That's ludicrous.
No, my argument is that Kamala Harris is the vice president of the United States.
Walz didn't make that argument. Walz didn't make that argument. And
he didn't have to. He did not have to because it's common knowledge.
It shows that you're so unobjective in looking at this debate that you're literally putting your own bias in it and saying that Walz did well by not even. That is bias.
Not even a bias.
If you didn't know whether or not Harris had any control over the campaign, and you just watched this debate, which we're talking about evaluating this debate, you're telling me that if you didn't know that, you would have, from Walz's performance, said, "Oh, of course Harris didn't have any decision making in the Biden campaign; she was just vice president." That's the direction you would have came out watching the performance of Vance versus Walz.
So you're judging the debate performance based on the lowest informed voter,
no, it's not the lowest informed voter. One, I'm
judging
that's
the argument you're making.
That is not. It's not for two reasons. One, I'm judging the debate performance based on the debate performance and not the bias that you're bringing in from outside. And second, it's not the lowest informed voter because the Harris administration that is hidden, or the Harris campaign that's basically hidden from the American people and for adversarial press, etc. She is trying to run a campaign that says she takes credits for the good things that happened under the Biden administration. And you even have Biden out there saying she was the last person in the room. She had authority. She was great. She helped me with Afghanistan. She helped me with the border, saying all of this stuff. And then simultaneously saying, but I'm the candidate of change. Never once has she said, actually, I disagreed with the policies of Biden. I think this policy was a mistake. I would have done things this way. She's been more than happy for 3.5 years to have the impression that she was one of the last people in the room that was helping coming up with these decisions. She had Biden saying that. She had the media saying that. She was saying that. She's continued to run on that. And when asked about how do we evaluate what you believe now versus the policy positions you had when you were running for office in 2020, she seems to be suggesting, well, I didn't do those things when I was in the Biden administration, thereby connecting to her again. So the idea you're saying that we all just have to say, oh, she has no connection to the Biden administration. She had no say in anything. She's vice president. Clearly, Joe Biden's the one who made these decisions. Oh, and never mind the fact that his brain's applesauce and we know that he wasn't actually doing anything. But we just have to know that Kamala Harris wasn't doing it. No, it's not the lowest common denominator. I would say to you, to articulate to me, so you would say that if hypothetically, do you think the economy is doing well right now?
Hold on. Let's bring it back. We're talking about Kamala Harris and
Right.
her role in the government first before we move on to another point.
Well,
So
it's important to that point because what I'm going to ask you, you could say yes or no. Do you think the economy's doing good now?
I'm going to finish the first topic that we're talking about,
Okay,
and then
well,
can go
what
on
I'll
to
do
whatever
is
you would
what
like.
I'll do. That's fine. You can ignore the question, right? Which is talking about the first topic that we're talking about because
You're trying to redirect the question.
I'm not
You're
trying to redirect
me to a
it.
different
So
one.
because you're refusing to answer, I'll answer for you. I bet if I went through your tweets, you'll say, actually, the Biden-Harris administration's done very good with the economy. We have lower inflation than most of the world. Job growth's been great. Blah blah blah. Now you'll give her credit for that. You'll say, yes, she was part of that administration.
No, I give Joe Biden. I give Joe Biden credit for that.
Okay, so Kamala Harris.
So
Just to be clear, and then you could go off on the point you want. You're saying that all of the positive benefits that you think have occurred in the Biden administration, you give zero credit to Harris because she was just the henchman. She was just the sidekick. She didn't do anything.
She did her job. She's a vice president. Yeah,
Okay,
like
so
if the
she
worst
can't
would have happened to
run
Joe
on-
Biden, right?
She can't run on the record.
Okay, so anyways,
You'll say anytime she tries to run on and says, "Look how good me and Joe Biden did," you say, "I don't give her credit for any of that. That's all Joe Biden. That's not her. That's your belief."
it's Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden's administration.
Okay, I
it's his
think you're lying.
cabinet. It's his
I think
position.
that's not. I think that's not.
Joe
I think
Biden
that's
picked
not the
Kamala Harris
argument
as
you would
VP.
make. I think
No,
I
it
think
is.
you're lying.
No, it's 100%.
I think you're
Absolutely not.
So yeah, I just want to be clear. If I would go through your Twitter or through any videos that you've
Do
done,
what you
you've
have
never
to do.
said. You have never said since Harris has been the candidate. You have never said actually Harris is part of this administration. They're doing great in the economy. They're doing great with the border now. They're doing great. You've never made that argument. You're telling us.
Can I let me do my thing here? Can I talk? All right?
Sure.
I'm gonna talk now. Awesome. So before Joe Biden dropped out, I was supporting Joe Biden. So I was actually advocating for the policies that he actually did get passed while he was president, and I actually credited some of his cabinet positions. So understanding that being Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris did a great job filling in for Joe Biden when he was campaigning and he was still running for president. She went in and spoke with NATO leadership on behalf of Ukraine and our
She's
interests.
just vice president. She doesn't get credit. Nope, she's just vice president. She don't get credit for any of that. Next.
That's not the argument.
Oh, so she gets credit for the things that you think were good, but when I say, oh well,
I'm judging
Harris,
her actions. I'm judging her direct actions. Like Kamala Harris went to that summit and spoke to NATO leaders,
and then
on behalf
Russia
of the
invaded
United
like
States.
3 days later.
And did what?
And then Russia invaded like 3 days later. That one.
No, what are you talking about?
Like when she went to Ukraine and she was going to sit there and
What do you-
sort of. Like
No, what do you? Okay,
yes.
Whoa, what is that? What is
Whoa,
that?
whoa,
No,
whoa,
no,
whoa,
okay,
whoa,
no, you
whoa.
explain this. You
Holy
explain this.
shit! Whoa, explain this. Like Kamala Harris went over to Ukraine and talked to them, and then like 3
When
days
was
later,
this?
like 3 days before Russia invaded. Whoa, yeah, that happened. Sorry, you weren't informed.
No, I am referring to Kamala Harris going to the summit this year, the Global Peace Summit. I'm not sure what you're talking about. You're talking about 3 days before the war?
Yes.
So you're talking about something that I'm not talking about. I'm talking about Kamala Harris's actions filling in for Joe Biden when he was campaigning for the election this year.
What you're talking about is the action she took when she directly talked to other world leaders. And you're talking specifically about when Joe Biden was campaigning. But it would be intuited then that you would say anytime she was taking actions when she was talking directly to world leaders that you would hold her responsible for that, correct? Or is there a reason that you give her credit when she was talking to world leaders, but only when Joe Biden was campaigning? When Joe Biden wasn't campaigning and she was directly talking to world leaders, you don't give her any credit.
Because Joe Biden was talking to the world leaders and Joe Biden's cabinet. And I have disagreements with positions inside of Joe Biden's cabinet and the State Department. I make that well known and I talk about it on my stream. But when Kamala Harris is making these decisions and she's representing the United States, she's done very, very well.
So just to be clear, what your position here is, when she goes over and talks to world leaders in 2022, that's not really her. That's just her as the cabinet of Joe Biden.
Okay,
let me finish.
So we're talking about 2022.
Let me finish. But once Joe Biden starts campaigning, now it's no longer that she's a member of the cabinet of Joe Biden. Now it's her making the decisions. So we could give her credit, but it only counts when Joe Biden's campaigning. Can you explain to me? So what you're telling me is the policies and the decisions that were made while Joe Biden was campaigning weren't the policies of Joe Biden. Those were the individuals that were operating because Joe Biden was out to lunch because he was running his campaign. Is that what you're telling us?
I'm not even sure where you're at with the argument you're making here.
I'm making a simple argument. If you're going to say we give Kamala Harris credit when she talks to world leaders and had a positive outcome, it seems that
where's the negative one? What's the negative one?
Well, like for example, a few days before Russia invaded, she went over and was trying to broker.
So you just say it. You're blaming Russia's invasion of Ukraine on Kamala Harris.
No, I'm saying it was clearly a failure when she was the point person that was designed to sit there and stop sort of an invasion occurring, and it happened.
That's not what her position was. Her position was to try to get us.
What was her position?
Her position was to prepare the United States to aid Ukraine in the upcoming Russian invasion that was planned, and that
your
that
argument,
Russian
that's
bases
your
in
argument.
Belarus.
So 3 days
and
before she went there, she said
Ukraine's
Russia's the invasion's imminent. That's what she was saying. Can you show me evidence of that?
Oh, of course.
Cool.
I mean, I can link it to you.
Sure, link.
I'll do it after the stream.
Cool.
Is that the position you're taking though? Like, what is
I'm
this?
taking the position I'm taking. I'm taking
what
the
is your
position of
position
the
on Kamala
Harris.
Harris with this?
I'm taking the position of the Harris position, which is when things seemed rosy, she was running on, I was there, I'm making these decisions. I'm taking the Joe Biden position. She's the last person in the room. She was integral to these policies. I'm saying that those policies, when it comes to the economy, to the border, to foreign policies, were way worse than the Trump administration, and she should be held accountable. And JD Vance did a tremendous job of accomplishing that in this debate with no pushback of walls. And you're trying to pretend that you're looking at this debate objectively, and the reason that you're saying that he should not get credit for that is because you just objectively know she was VP and didn't have any connection to all that stuff, except the things that selectively you think were good. And then you say, actually, VP Harris should get credit for that, but she shouldn't be punished for the policies that she was part of this administration because she's just VP and doesn't have connection.
Okay, you're very good at talking in like a twister, and you're very good at, because I was talking about Kamala Harris this year. Yeah, I can. That's clear. So Kamala Harris met with world leaders on 2 instances that you referenced in 2022, and then I referenced this year before the election, like that because of the Global Peace Summit, and those are 2 instances where Kamala Harris. Okay. 2 instances where Kamala Harris represented the United States for our interests to help Ukraine. Now, how are you equating that to Kamala Harris apparently like runs the country and it's her administration and all of the responsibilities that have fallen under the Joe Biden administration are somehow just all responsible for Kamala Harris? Like, how is that connected? What is the powers of the vice president? Can you tell me that?
Right. So first off, I could tell you that Joe Biden almost did nothing. His entire administration, his brains.
Okay, that's.
You asked the question. Would you like me to answer? So the idea, and we're basically being told now that we all but know that even though Joe Biden's not cognitively all there, it's okay because actually the show's ran by people behind the scenes anyways. So to that extent, there's no reason that we shouldn't look at the second in command and say that they're responsible as an integral part of that administration, particularly
that's
when
a bias. That's bias.
You can say that's bias. That's fine. You asked me the question, and I'm going to answer.
Right.
Particularly then when we see that Harris herself is trying to connect herself to the Biden administration and has done so for 4 years, saying that, and Joe Biden has done the same, saying that she was integral and she was involved with all these policies, everything from economics to the border to foreign policy, as you're saying now. You're trying to differentiate and saying, no, we should ignore all of that because we've been lied to. And you know this, the American people don't buy the argument.
No, I disagree with that.
Let me finish.
I'm not in your world.
The American people, you could say you're not in my world, but the polling is quite clear on this. The American people, when it comes to the issues that they think are the most important, such as the economy and the border, think that the Trump administration was better than the Harris-Biden administration. And so that's despite the fact that we've been gaslit for how secure the border was for 4 years and how great
you trust
the economy
polls?
was.
You trust polls?
No, I don't think that they're entirely true, but I trust them directionally. And I think that it's the proof's also not just in the poll, but how you see the reaction. The fact that even you are trying to run from Harris being connected to the Biden administration shows that you and the Democrats
I'm literally not, though.
It shows that you and the Democrats know that if it's a referendum on how is the economy in the border under Trump versus how is the economy in the border under Harris-Biden, that Trump wins that. The Democrats know that. You know that. All of us know that.
Absolutely not, because when given the position or given the opportunity to support a border aid, Donald Trump literally called Republican senators and House to tell them not to vote for the bill as it was passing through. He did that from the outskirts for political gains. He has no interest in the U.S. southern border. So Kamala Harris and Joe Biden had a plan. When that does get sent back through the House and the Senate, Kamala Harris already said that she would be willing to sign it. Both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris with the Republican-led House with a bill that was led by a Republican with Senator James Langford. And Donald Trump said, nope, the country can handle it. All that fentanyl that's coming in, all those deaths in Americans and the Haitians and the dogs and the cats in Ohio and all that bullshit can handle it. And because I need to be the supreme commander of the United States of America, I need to be the one that issues these orders. So that just tells me that they don't really care at all. They're just going to use it for political talking points when ready and available. But I told you 2 instances that Kamala Harris.
I'll respond to that.
I'm not. Hold that.
You're welcome to have me as a guest on your show, and you could talk as much as you want. But I will respond to the point you make there. Very effective at regurgitating the NPC talking points that you've been given by the Democrats to repeat over and over. So here's the narrative that you're pushing. In 2020, we were told by Biden and Harris the border is secure. In 2021, we were told by Harris Biden the border is secure. In 2022, we were told by Harris Biden the border is secure. In 2023, 2023, we were told by Harris Biden the border is secure. Now it's an election year, and so they have to pretend to care because their internal polling shows, whoops, even people that are traditionally Democrat think there's a huge problem at the border. So now they have to pretend to care. So they're like, well, what about this border bill? The border bill is a disaster. First off, the Republicans that are connected, it's not really about Republican versus Democrat. It's about establishment versus people that are seen as outside the establishment. That's fine. You could say that's cope. The Republicans clearly didn't care about the border before Donald Trump, as is evidenced by the fact that many Republican strategists told Trump in 2016 that such a focus on the border was a losing issue. The truth is they like the fact that they're, it's not that Trump won in 2016. You remember, it wasn't a losing issue. And most Americans, even in the debate last night, most Americans think that they would support even things like mass deportations, let alone a stronger border wall or border security. So it is a winning issue to talk about border security. And so what happened is Republicans don't really want to talk about it. They pushed forth a bill that was terrible. This bill would have let in like 5,000 illegals a day. It would have allowed exceptions from the very Biden administration, such as Mayorkas, that had showed a proclivity to allow these people in whatsoever. It funded the very NGOs that are facilitating these people coming in. It would have enshrined this in law, even if Trump won. So he would have had difficulty rescinding this law and having a congressional law passed to have an actual stronger border. It didn't provide any funding for a border wall that would come immediately. All of these things were terrible about this bill. And the idea that Trump should have supported this or Republicans should have supported this that would have allowed the Democrats to have these loopholes and enshrine this in law. So for the next 2 years, they could say, just like the moderators tried to spin, well, it's legal. It's legal that these people are coming in. Republicans voted for it. It's legal. So now you just have to accept these hundreds of thousands that come in a year because you voted for it, which is the exact argument they would have made and said that they couldn't rescind it. I'm supposed to believe that somehow the Democrats that told us for 4 years that the border was secure and did nothing until it was an election year and then wanted a bill that funded the very NGOs that allowed this illegal immigration and facilitate it that would have enshrined this in the law. Oh, but they really care about the border. Bullshit. Why didn't they talk about the border? Why did they say that it was secure in 2021, 2022, 2023? When they had control of the House and the Senate and the presidency, why didn't they solve the border crisis? If it was so important to them, why instead were they rescinding Trump's executive orders, which led to the worst border crisis in modern history, and telling us all the while, actually, the border's secure? Why did they do that if they really care about the border?
Yeah. Because the United States is not a dictatorship, and things need to be done through the Congress.
They controlled Congress and the Senate.
Who controlled the Congress and the
Democrats.
Senate? We control the House?
Didn't you in 2020? Am I wrong about this?
Who was president?
Biden, 2021, right? That election, the 2020 election.
The House went to, and Biden continued the border wall. Biden continued funding the border wall. He continued border wall in Arizona and Texas. Have you been to the border wall?
No, I haven't. Have you?
Okay, yeah, I have.
Wow. So he continued. How many miles of the border wall was built by Biden Harris?
I don't have that number
You've
on
been
me
there.
right now.
You've been there. Give me a ballpark figure.
I don't have the exact. You're looking it up, so you tell me.
I'm not looking it up. I'm asking you. You're the one who's speaking as an expert. You've been there. You said that Biden built the border wall. I'm asking you, how much?
I'm saying Biden continued Trump's border wall. He continued it in October of 2021 into November. And he actually still continued.
So what occurred was, as you know, as was again referenced in the debate last night, which Vance could have done a slightly better job on this, we were told by Democrats that border walls were ineffective and racist. And so when Trump wanted to spend some money on creating a border wall to have a secure border, they had one of the longest government shutdowns in history to stop him from doing it. Now,
if border walls worked, if border walls truly worked, why was immigration moving up, or why were border crossings going up before Donald Trump even left office? Why, when he showed his famous graph in his speech, and also that MAGA Republicans showed in the Congress showing immigration numbers rising, why was it going up while Donald Trump was president? Like, why didn't the borders? Why did Mexico not pay for the border? Why is the border wall not finished under Trump when he had control of it?
All right, bunch of interesting questions. One, the reason that the border wall wasn't finished under Trump was he tried to have a bill that Democrats had the largest government shutdown because they said that walls were racist, walls that they're now advocating for. So you or Kamala Harris haven't answered for why the wall under Donald Trump was racist, but now that they want a wall that it's not racist. You haven't answered why, if it was ineffective when Donald Trump wanted it, why now Kamala Harris is supporting it. Second, he's not a dictator, so he wasn't able to just say, screw it, I'm going to build a wall on my own. Because the Democrats had a shutdown, he was unable to get accomplished everything he wanted. Third, it is true that there was times that because his numbers of illegal immigration and border crossings were so low at one point, it did naturally go up at some points. Ben, there were many reasons why that could have occurred, but it wasn't because walls don't work. It was because there was illegal immigration coming that was facilitated by organizations that our establishment and the Democrats want, like NGOs.
That's just nonsense.
You don't think NGOs are facilitating the illegal crime?
No.
That's not true.
No.
The evidence shows that's quite literally what's going on. Nonetheless, the idea that we
evidence?
have to say because there are ebbs and flows under a 4-year period, and sometimes it went up, like in 2019. By the way, it went down in 2020 then, correct?
No, it was on the rise while Donald Trump was
the argument is when he left in 2020, that was the highest point that had been under the Trump administration.
Is that what I said? Is that what
you said? It was going up when he went out.
It was already starting to, like, if you read a graph, you know how graphs work?
I do.
Okay, so it was already starting to trend upward while Donald Trump was still president. Like, it was already increasing to the levels where it's getting to. Like, it was already on an upward trajectory while Donald Trump was still in office. And he points to the point on the graph after he was out of office as if it's, or he pointed to a point on the graph while he was still in office and tried to sell it as if this is happening while he was out of office and president, and it's just not the case. But the problem at the border is not going to be fixed with a wall. It's not going to be fixed with security. It's not going to be fixed with the National Guard or whatever, even though the National Guard are down there. And whenever it's raining, by the way, they don't care. Like, there's no crossings when it's raining.
Okay, so just to illustrate the point that you're trying to make. So here's the border crossings under Donald Trump. 2016, 331,000. 2017 drops to 311,000. 2018 drops to 304,000. 2019 goes up to 396,000. 2020, at the end of the year, we had around 350,000, which was precipitously lower than it was in 2019. So the argument is that it went like this, was trending down, then went up in 2019, and as I said, then went back down in 2020. Those numbers were exacerbated hugely under Biden. The argument is that you're trying, and we know that there was, because they couldn't get the policies that he wanted passed through Congress, because Democrats led the largest shutdown, because they wanted these open borders, as they all tantamountly admitted. They did. On that debate stage in 2020, all of them said it shouldn't be a criminal offense for people to come. They all said that they wanted to give benefits to these people. All of them said it's a humanitarian crisis. None of them said of any measures that they would put to stop these people that are coming as long as they claimed asylum. So it was tantamount to open borders. They signaled to the rest of the world that if you come here, we will give you all of these benefits. We'll allow you in. And predictably, that's exactly what happened. On top of that, there were 90-something executive orders that Joe Biden bragged about, which Kamala Harris was there and bragged about as well, almost immediately rescinding, which predictably led to a border crisis, which we could see occurring in real time. They told us over and over there wasn't a border crisis, that the border was secure. They told us that in 2021. They told us that in 2022. They told us that in 2023. And then when they saw that it was an election year issue, they said, oh, now we have to try to keep our phony baloney jobs and pretend that we care about this issue. That's exactly what occurred. It is undeniable.
I think it's an absolute projection.
What were they doing in 2022 when they had control of the House and the Senate?
What was the Republicans doing when they had bipartisan support and they could have fixed the issue?
They didn't. I already explained to you how the bill was actually bad.
That bill was such an authoritarian bad. You're the projection of the bill that you're talking about with the Kamala Harris supporter that James Langford led is a good bill. The one you're talking about with Donald Trump and the House Republicans, HR2 is dog shit. It's an abs. I am disputing it right now. If you let me speak, I will dispute it.
It was good. That's what you said so far. It was good.
I'm actively disputing what you just said right now. Okay.
It was good.
Anyways, HR2 is not a good bill. It was an authoritarian bill that was not going to actually address the systemic problems at the U.S. southern border with asylum claims because they are backlogging the system. Okay, this would have added judges. This would have added more border agents. This would have added more resources. Would have added more security measures at the U.S. southern border to identify any threats that were crossing the southern border into the United States. And Donald Trump and the Republicans said nope. With all these measures and a bipartisan support that Republicans still could have claimed. They could have claimed a victory, a strategic victory under a Democrat president. Everything you're claiming about Democrats back in when Trump was president. You have Biden as the president, and he's a Democrat, and he would have signed a Republican-led legislature for the U.S. southern border, and Donald Trump decided, nope, because I need to win an election, and this is the only issue that I have. But you're not actually going to address any of the concerns. You just want to have fear and carnage, send a HIMARS system down there, send an M1 Abrams systems down there. You know what? I was in a debate with another MAGA, and he said we need to have a battalion of Marines down there. If you decided I'm going to ask a question. How many battalions of Marines would it take to secure the U.S. southern border? What do you think?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Nope.
That's a better answer than the last one I
Okay,
got.
cool.
I'd
So,
take that one.
so now notice what he did here was he completely ignored everything I said. He said
No, I
bill
didn't.
was good. Yeah, this is what he did. So this is
I
what he-
directly talked
this is what
about
he does. He
HR2,
didn't say
which was the
anything.
Republican
So
bill.
what he did was he talked about HR2 and just said it was authoritarianism. HR2 was a bill that actually had teeth that would have not allowed thousands of people in a day that came here. That's
Wrong.
why he doesn't like.
Wrong. Wrong.
So it would have.
Wrong.
It would have.
Wrong.
It would have.
They
Go
would've-
ahead.
You think that bill would have stopped people from crossing the border? What do
I
you,
think
so
it
let me
didn't
get this.
enshrine that legally we had to accept in 5,000 something a day before it went into effect. Correct.
That's not. It's still a humanitarian issue. People are crossing for
see,
asylum. Like it's
there
still
you-
going to
and there
be
you
a
go. And
problem.
now it comes-
Like
and
sorry,
now
okay,
you
I'm sorry. I'm
now
not going to
you
take
see-
the position. Sorry,
he
Rob.
proves the point.
Sorry,
He
Rob.
proves the
I'm
point.
not going to take
He-
the position of.
he
I'm
proves-
not going to take the position of the
Go ahead.
military firing away at immigrants
No one
crossing the border. I'm
suggested-
just not
no
going to
one
take
said-
this.
no one said the military shouldn't fire at them.
Okay, then going back to the debate. Going back to the debate from last night. Going back to the debate from last night.
I'm not going to leave you
So when
filibuster. It's
JD
my
Vance,
show. If I come as a guest on your show, if I come as a guest on your show, you can filibuster to your heart's
I'm going to
content, but I'm
empower
going
the
to-
U.S. southern
I'm
border.
going
What does
to-
that mean?
We'll just okay.
When JD Vance says, I'm
not
gonna
gonna leave you
empower the
filibuster
agents of
here.
the US southern-
The last
All right.
chance, I'll leave you. I'll leave you. Sort of allow me to address this, or you can keep trying to talk over me. It's your choice. Right now, notice what he did. Now he gives the game away here. Actually, it's a humanitarian crisis. We do have to leave these people in. You see, and that's exactly what this bill was that they were pushing for.
That's not
It was
what
a
I said.
bill that
That's
is
not
what
what I
you
said.
said.
No, it's
Again,
not.
I'm just going to talk. You can continue to say the
I know you're good at it. You're very good at doing it.
I know you're not very good, ironically, but people can judge for themselves what you said. So, here's
Well,
in
it's your
effect what
show, of
happened.
course,
So
because you're just going to
that's
talk
right.
over me
It's-
and you're just going to claim it's your show.
I mean, that's
yeah, exactly.
what you're doing right now. You're trying
Right.
to talk over me. So, nonetheless, what else
Right.
was?
You
You
can
see,
do
when
it
it
to me,
comes to
though.
H2, when we talk about the bill H2 or the HR2 bill, you can see when it actually had more teeth. He's like, but I don't like that. I don't like the teeth. It's a humanitarian crisis. We have to leave certain people in. That's what the bill was doing that was pushed. It had all of these loopholes. Notice he didn't address any of them. He didn't address the fact that it let in 5,000 something people a day. He didn't address the fact that it had loopholes that people like my Orcus that clearly wasn't enforcing the border. As the Border Patrol Union had said, it gave that they
Patrol
blame
Union.
specifically Biden, right, and say that he's been an abysmal failure and it basically allowed these failures to occur. He doesn't address any of that. He doesn't address the funding to the NGOs. He doesn't address the fact that this would have enshrined it in law, which meant if Republicans took over, they would have difficulty rescinding it. He doesn't address any of that. Instead, he just goes back to talking the same old talking points. He says it would have sent a bunch of money for judges and things like that. Well, the problem's not money. The problem is that these Border Patrol agents, of course, they're going to say, sure, we'll take more money, and maybe they
want to
could
be
use more
empowered.
money. Please.
Right.
But it's also the fact that they have an administration currently that's
Is this a
intentionally
debate? Are you just talking? Like,
I'm going to talk to my heart's content on my
Okay.
show. I gave you a
It's
large
a
chunk of
debate?
time to talk there. I don't know. Is it a debate? You called
I'm
in and
asking
disagreed
you.
with me, right? I'm disagreeing with your position right now. So it is taking a format of sort of a debate because you're issuing a position that I'm rebutting, right? That's what I'm doing. So you could say, are we calling this a debate? I would say asking that question seems to suggest that you're trying to derail the point I'm making because already I've said it twice and you've not addressed it. Now, talking specifically then about this bill, he didn't address any of those things that I said that this bill did because all he's capable of doing is repeating the talking points that he's heard. But it was bipartisan, Langford said, right, and it was still a terrible bill. It would have been enshrined in law.
Those are your opinions.
You could see.
Those are your opinions.
You could see from the way that he talks that actually he, just like the Democrats, want to allow these people. We have to be humanitarian. We have to allow them in, right? And so that's sort of the rhetoric that they're going with anyways. Notice that he didn't address once. He hasn't even attempted to address.
Am I like your
Not even
showpiece?
once.
Or like,
He
what are you
hasn't-
doing? I'm right here. Like,
Yes.
I'm talking. Like, I can talk and present my own opinions. I'm not
That's
a showpiece.
fine. You
I'm
can
not
when
like,
you get a chance.
I'm not
to
like
talk,
your
you can.
trophy.
You could. That's fine. I certainly I don't need you as a trophy. You could have the chance to
That's
address.
but that's
this
what
when
that's how
I'm
you
done
presented me.
talking. You can have the chance, and I'll be sure to interrupt you as
present
commonly
your-
as you're interrupting me.
I'm
Obviously-
ready
Now
for it.
notice
You've
how
already
he
been doing it.
hasn't addressed whatsoever. Would you prefer if I say this? Notice how you haven't addressed whatsoever the fact that the Biden administration told us the border was secure in 2021, 2022, 2023, that they controlled the House and the Senate through 2021 and 2022, and they didn't do anything to secure the border. In fact, they seemed pretty pleased in telling us that everything was going swimmingly, that these people were coming in, flooding in. Notice he hasn't addressed that. What he wants you to believe is that they were diligently working on securing the border and thought it was a problem when we saw these record numbers coming in 2021, 2022, 2023. They were diligently working on it, even though they were telling us and virtue signaling to all of us, actually the border's secure, actually things are going quite well. And then it just so happened in 2024, they finally came to oh, you know what? Here's this bill that we support. He hasn't answered the fact that we saw that the numbers.
Because I fundamentally disagree with you. I fundamentally disagree with you. I fundamentally disagree with you on this. Like, you have your position and I have a different position, and you're trying to sell your MAGA audience your take, but I'm here trying to
Okay, we'll just mute you here for a second, so then we'll give you a chance to speak when I'm done. Notice how he hasn't addressed that. Now, what you can't lie about is the data. You can't. We see that one of the first things that Biden did when he came in office was bragged about the 90-something executive orders of Trump's that he rescinded, and we see that that immediately led to a gratuitous spike in the amount of illegals that were coming. It's because they wanted them to come. They bragged about it. They thought it was a PR victory to say, oh, we're treating them more humanely. We got rid of these. And predictably, the data doesn't lie. He has no answers for any of that. He's going to the old Democratic talking point. Oh, trust us. We always cared about the border. But mean old Trump didn't like this border bill, so all of the blame falls on him. Okay, you can respond now.
So like your authoritarian banhammer for muting me there.
Are you banned?
So number one, we talk about I don't know, whatever, muted. So you talk about Democrat.
Is this a debate? Is this a debate?
This is fun. So
is it a debate? Is it a debate?
Yeah, it's a debate. So anyway, so U.S.
Am I your trophy?
Am
I your trophy? Is that what this is? I'm your trophy?
I wasn't going to actually
annoying. Am I your trophy? Am I your trophy? Is that what it is? Am I your trophy? Am I your trophy? And like that's all this is. Is this a debate? Is this a debate? Go ahead. I'll leave you talk now. It's annoying though.
It was a very, very good bill, and it was worked on by both sides, which is very important to do in a bipartisan Congress. And you try to pass bills for the American people that is bipartisan. And when given the opportunity to pass something that both parties supported and people from both sides supported, the Republican Party and Donald Trump said, nope, that's good. We don't need any of that. It is a humanitarian issue, regardless of whatever the cope you're talking about. I know you really just want to like load up a 249 and just a belt fed and just fire away at the immigrants down there, but that's just not going to solve the issue, and it's just not going to solve the border crisis. The number one source of immigrants coming into the United States is going to be from when they fly in and stay beyond their allowed visa. That is actually the number one immigration stay inside of the United States. It's not even the U.S. southern border crossings. I fundamentally disagree that the U.S. southern border crossings are a very key, strong issue with the United States. I feel like that is a very focused MAGA Republican talking point. And even when addressing the issues of the asylum and the backlogged asylum that does need to be fixed, I agree with you. I agree that there is issues that need to be handled down there. But I guess when it comes to actually taking care of the problem and legislating and bringing it to the Congress to do so, you would rather fall onto talking points and narratives and then push it back into propaganda and not even handle the problem when given, or not even handle the issue when presented. And I think Tim Walz did a good job of that in the debate yesterday, talking about demonizing the problem instead of solving it. And that is a very common MAGA Republican tactic when dealing with any type of issue or anything in the news space these days. You're just going to demonize it, complain about it, and then not actually want to figure it out or solve it. You're just going to make it up, just like JD Vance says, just going to make up some stories, and hopefully that's what people will go with. So, I mean, you've done a lot of rambling and a lot of Republican talking points, and I was just going to share that my background isn't Democrat. Like, I am not a Democrat. I come from MAGA. I voted for Trump in 2016. I volunteered for John McCain's campaign in 2008. I mail-in voted for Mitt Romney when I was deployed overseas in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. So I've been very much a Republican like my whole life up until 2020 when I decided to vote Green Party, because I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go for both of these parties. Like, I'm going to vote for someone else now. So I went Green Party. But then now, because of how cooked the right wing is and how cooked MAGA is and how cooked libertarians are, simping for Vladimir Putin and wanting to be Putin fluffers, there's just no chance for me to go for any other political party other than the Democratic Party, who at least want to keep the fundamental or the foundations of the United States together by upholding the Constitution, which MAGA and the Republicans have absolutely zero interest in doing.
So you notice that there's a lot of sophistry here when we're talking about the specifics of the bill that he wanted to talk about. Notice how he hasn't addressed any of the specifics again. He just says these buzzwords. It was bipartisan. Oh, by the way, I'm not
bipartisan
a Democrat.
Is a buzzword?
I'm not
bipartisan is a buzzword?
I'll finish my point. It was bipartisan. So don't all the specific objections you made to it. No, it was bipartisan. It's all good. When it comes to, I'm not really a Democrat. I just have no choice because of MAGA. None of this addresses the point that he wanted to make specifically about the border. Notice he, again, completely failed to address for about the fourth time the fact that the Biden-Harris administration rescinded all of these executive orders.
I did address it. You're lying. You were lying. You were lying. You are lying to your audience right now. I did address it.
How'd you address it? Go ahead. You have 10 seconds to tell me how you addressed it.
Okay, I fundamentally disagree with your entire position. positioning on the border. I do not view it as an issue within the United States as an invasion. I do not view it as an issue in the way that you
not
view it.
address. That's not addressing. So he
That is
doesn't
directly
address,
addressing it.
That
That
is
is
not
actually
addressing.
directly
That's not
addressing
addressing him saying I don't think it's a big
That is
problem.
directly
That is
addressing
not
it,
addressing it. Him saying I don't think it's a problem isn't the same as me saying the Biden team told us that there wasn't a crisis at the border. They said it was good. Now they're saying it is a crisis at the border. So why didn't they talk about it in 2021, 2022, 2023 when we saw these record numbers? What were the policies that they were advocating to solve it when they had both the House and the Senate? What did they do? They did nothing. They waited until it was an election.
They never had the House and the Senate. You're making that up. Again,
that's your claim?
When did so the Democrats had the House and the Senate? We've had all three? All three?
1 second. Yeah, you could be right. Let me check.
I know I'm right. It's been a Republican House the entire time. I know I'm right. They're the ones fighting back at it this entire time. Under Trump, they had a Democrat Senate, and they had a Democrat House and a Republican Senate. Now it's inverted.
Let's see. Oh shit. 1 second. Let's find the exact numbers.
Mm-hmm. So anyways,
no, it's fine. We're gonna. Let's find it. Let's see. 20 would be the 117th Congress. Correct? I believe. So we'll get the exact numbers. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. Okay.
The Democratic Party had 220 members in the House. The Republicans had 212. And I believe in the Senate, the Democrats, it was tied, if I'm not mistaken, and Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote as the VP. Correct?
Are you referring to
the independents? But it was 50-50 with the independents voting Democratic, so it was 50-50, and Kamala Harris became the tie-breaking vote. So you're incorrect. The Democrats, with the tie-breaking vote in the 50-50, controlled the Senate, and they had more members of the House from 2020 to 2022, and they had the presidency. Will you admit you were incorrect?
From 2020 to 20, so 2 full years?
Yes, correct. They had the House, the Senate.
Even while Trump was president?
No, the election that occurred in 2020 that would have resulted.
So that would be 2021. So they took over in 2021.
The election occurred in 2020 for 2 years. The first 2 years of the Biden presidency. Look, you made the declarative claim. You said that I was wrong. I was willing to look it up and say that I could be wrong.
They did not start governing until 2021. Please.
Okay, they governed for 2 full years. They governed for 2 full years. The first 2 full years of the Biden-Harris administration, they had a tie in the Senate with Harris had the tiebreaker, and they controlled the House. Correct or not?
Wrong. No.
Okay, no. What was wrong about that?
Trump was in office in 2020. All of 2020.
Okay, let's say
the whole year, the entire year.
From 2021 to 2023.
And you said 4 years too.
No, I didn't. I said for 2 years they had the House, the Senate.
I heard 4.
Well, you were mistaken. You weren't listening because you were too busy talking over me. So again, I've directed this 3 times to you and said they controlled the House. They controlled all 3 branches of, they controlled the executive and the legislature. Why didn't they do anything on the border? Your answer is?
They didn't do anything at the border. Like,
right? Why didn't they pass the legislation?
So HR2, why didn't they pass HR2? Is what you're asking?
I didn't say specifically HR2. Instead, they told us there wasn't a border crisis. Right? That's what they told us. They said it wasn't a border crisis. Instead, what you saw was Joe Biden rescinding executive orders.
Wrong. No.
What did they do? Tell us what they did.
Absolutely. The right wing was framing the border as some type of an invasion through right wing media.
Okay, you disagree with the frame. You disagree with the framing. So what did they do?
They drafted a bill led through James Langford to address the concerns and issues directly by right wing Republicans.
That's in 2024. What did they do in 2021, 2022?
Last time I checked, they're presidents for 4 years, and they have an office for 4 straight years.
That's correct.
So whatever they do within the time frame is what they can accomplish. So you're going to say because it wasn't done in the first.
Right. When they had control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, so that was their chance to pass forth bills that Biden would have been able to sign. What did they do?
So they have 4 years to govern. They were trying to get the bill.
What did they do for those first 2 years? They were trying to get that bill, the Langford bill, through in 2021?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So what did they do for those? If they thought that there was a problem at the border, what did they do?
Who thought it was a problem at the border? Your
Well,
right
that's what
wingers
the
thought it was a
Biden.
problem at the
Oh,
border.
so you're admitting that the Harris-Biden administration didn't think there was a problem at the border.
Not in the same sense as
That's
MAGA
right.
Republicans
And that's
do.
exactly so.
That's why I think
so. That's
that's
exactly
what I
the
told
point
you.
I
But
was
that's what I
making.
told
So
you, and that's what I told your audience. I fundamentally disagree with this entire principle.
So that's exactly.
I fundamentally
so
disagree.
I'll go back. So now, after all that and the deflection, saying actually they didn't control the House, that was incorrect. But I was willing to give. Look, all of us make mistakes, so I'm not holding you too much. But I was pretty sure that I was correct about that. So you can see this chart here when he talks about how things were going up. Things were going up to Trump. You see October 2020, December 2020. Now you see February 2021. When Biden comes in, you see that it starts to go up. It's unsurprising when they talk to a lot of these people that are illegally crossing. They said Biden will allow us here. The Democrats want us here. Then you see the crisis numbers that we saw all through the Biden-Harris administration. It's no surprise because they didn't treat it like a crisis, as this caller is saying. They rescinded executive orders. They wanted these people to come in. They didn't think it was a crisis. They only are now talking about it in 2024 because they realize it's an election issue because people were concerned about it. So he doesn't have any answer. He didn't answer. He only says, well, the reason that Biden-Harris didn't do anything when they had the House and the Senate and they had the executive branch was they didn't buy the framing that it was a crisis, right? Which is another way of saying they did nothing. And then he just flounders and says, but
because we're not living in your MAGA world, and also
that's not like now again. I gave you plenty of time to talk after I was done messing with you for the interruptions you gave. You'll have a chance to speak again after this, right? So again, he again concedes that they didn't do anything. They didn't think it was a crisis, and you could see it just oozes from him. Oh, it needs to be humanitarian, and I don't buy your framing, and it wasn't this big deal, and blah blah blah.
Oozes.
Again, if I have to mute you so I could get through my point because you can't continue yourself, I could do that, no problem. Anyways, you could see that it oozes from him that actually he was okay with these people coming in. That's the truth. And so was Biden, and so was Harris. They're only now pretending to care because they know that it's bad for them in the election. He also just says it was bipartisan, doesn't address any of the specific things I said that were problematic with this bill at all. Doesn't even remotely try to. It isn't opinions. I'm telling you things that were in the bill, and he's not. Again, last chance. If you interrupt me again, I'll just mute you.
Just do it. Just mute me. Okay. Mute me right now. Yeah. Mute me right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're muted. Right. Yeah. And maybe I'll bring him back. Maybe I won't. If you're asking to be muted, I'm more than happy to gratify your request there. He doesn't have any response, so he just keeps going with these buzzwords. It's bipartisan, and Trump doesn't care. Again, what I'm telling you is you could see that he doesn't care about the border. Biden-Harris didn't care about the border. They don't care. They wanted a bill that would encourage allowing these illegals to keep coming, 5,000 something a day. That's written in the bill. They wanted one that had loopholes that Mayorkas would be able to say he could give special exemptions. That's written in the bill. It can only be enforced, I think, up to like 180 days or something like that. I don't remember the exact specifics. That's in the bill. It funded these NGOs. That's in the bill. It enshrined it into law for multiple years. That's in the bill. He doesn't address any of it. He just says, but it was bipartisan, so it's all good. And the American people understand that when it comes to the border, that Trump was markedly better. And all they have is, but we tried to put this bill out at the last minute, but they can't explain the fact why they didn't think it was a crisis for 3 years. Why they gaslit the American people that everything was good. And it was only till it was election year when they spoke up. This goes more back to, we got a little sidetracked from what the conversation was supposed to be, that he believes that Walz won the debate against J.D. Vance. And when I outlined the reason that I think Vance clearly won, he immediately resorts to, well, for things that Walz didn't even say in the debate, I think Walz won. So when I say, look, J.D. Vance did a great job of connecting Harris to the failed policies of the Biden administration, and Walz never even pushed back once, he's like, but everybody knows that's not true. It doesn't matter. That's stupid. Of course she's just VP. And you can see how he's floundering. He's using, his bias of things that weren't even said in the debate to inject his own argumentation to try to save Tim Walz. It is evident to anyone to watch that both perceptually, as this caller admits, that perceptually J.D. Vance looked good. He makes excuses immediately. He says, well, he's an experienced debater. Right, so that's why he looks better. That's why he was better on the substance, and that's why he was better at achieving the goals that he outlined. Only someone that's biased to the point where they are predisposed to hating MAGA and wanting to vote for Harris and Walz thought that Walz won that debate. He hasn't given any reason why he thought Walz won that debate. He's given deflections. He's given talking points. And he's clearly ill-equipped to argue the specifics of these issues. Instead, he's just going, but it was bipartisan. And actually, Democrats didn't have the House and the Senate. And actually, okay, they did, but that was only 2 years. And what did you expect them to do? They're there for 4 years, et cetera, et cetera. So he's out of his depth on this. And I appreciate the fact that he wants to get a little clout and come on here and think that he could talk to someone who's acknowledged several times that I'm a good debater and I'm a good talker. And I appreciate that. We'll give him a chance to respond here. But it's clear that he's out of his depth, much like Tim Walz. It's a very much Vance-Walz-esque conversation that we're having here, which is ironic. He doesn't have much on details, has a lot on empty platitudes and ignoring things, and and trying to sort of say, speak out of both sides of his mouth. Actually, they're trying to secure the border and they're doing a good job. But it wasn't a crisis, and these numbers were good. There was no problem that these people were coming in, and I refuse to accept your MAGA framework. Last thing I'll say is he makes some comment about how I want Marines shooting at people. Never said that. Desperation. Next thing he'll say that I wrote Project 2025, just like the Harris Walls administration or campaign. So he's learned from people that know how to have false smears and things like that. There you go. You're unmuted. If you could contain yourself.
If I can contain myself. So that's what you do. You mute your debate opponent and then just talk over them and present their opinions as fake opinions. Like everything you just said is an absolute lie. And even to the point where you said Marines on the border and I want you to shoot them. I was asking about your authoritarian position on the border and whether empowering, from when JD Vance in the debate last night wants to empower the southern border and empower agents. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that they get to shoot immigrants crossing the border? That's what I asked you specifically. And then in a joke, because I debate other MAGAs, and I don't know what you think I'm coming to your platform for some clout. That's kind of a silly comment to make. But I've debated other MAGAs, and they have the same position, or they had the position that all it would take is just a battalion of Marines at the U.S. southern border, and that would absolutely solve the security problem. So that's why I asked you that. But again, you wanted to mute me to misrepresent my position, which you've done numerous times tonight, and that's why I've started to talk over you and turn into some bad faith argument, because you're absolutely arguing in complete bad faith. I mean, everything you've said is just based on feelings. Everything you said is based on emotions about the bills. You're not even going to get into it. And when I do respond to every single point that you make, you want to mute me and say, no, this is what he's really saying. And this is, he's doing talking points, and bipartisan is a fuck, whatever you said, is a code word or a keyword or whatever insane talking points that you do have over there. So anyways, back to the debate and back to who we think won the debate, because I was trying to give my opinion as to why I think Tim Walz won that debate and J.D. Vance actually lost. J.D. Vance did good at Republican talking points. He's a very good debater, which you were trying to re-explain to your audience and repackage my own argument to them, which is very, very weird to do, especially when I'm literally sitting here in a Discord call with you and you're trying to repackage my positions to your audience, which is very weird. But I was trying to explain that J.D. Vance is kind of similar to like a used car salesman. Like, he's very good at selling you something without saying a whole lot of substance to it. And that's what his common debate tactic was. And he has much more experience in doing that over Tim Walz, because like I said, that was Tim Walz's very first national debate. But the most thing that Tim Walz said, when J.D. Vance was talking about the U.S. southern border, his position was to just empower the law enforcement to do its job, manifest the power. He's saying hospitals are full, houses are full. He's worried for American citizens. He's saying the border is open. And then he also lied about the CBP One app magically waving the wand to become a U.S. citizen, which is an absolute lie. That's not what that intends to do. So anyways, all in all, during the first 2 years of the Biden administration, they were trying to get legislation through for the U.S. southern border and faced backlash from Joe Manchin and Sinema in the Congress, similar to this year with MAGA Republicans trying to fight back, because Joe Manchin and Sinema absolutely are working against the Democratic Party. So when they were trying to get legislation through, especially this year for that U.S. southern border, you can bring up all you want and bring up numbers and all of the past, and it doesn't matter. Where the issues, time moves forward. Time moves in one direction and one direction only. We don't loop backwards. We don't spin backwards. We don't circle back to the past. We live in the present. And when given the opportunity to pass a bill that would have substantially assisted the U.S. southern border with security, with money, with funding, with resources for border agents and resources for asylum judges, which is absolutely needed because the asylum list is backlogged and they need to see a judge in order to be determined if they can stay in the country or not. I know this is a lot of information. So they need to see a judge before being decided if they can stay in the country or not. These would have added the resources to be able to handle that, because if you are concerned of criminals in the U.S. Coming across the border, you got to find out, right? We got to find out if they are a criminal, if they do have a past. And in order to do that, they need to see these asylum judges. And that money would have absolutely helped that take place. But again, Donald Trump and the Republicans decided not to give Donald Trump an advantage in the 2024 election.
Okay, so again, you can see it's ironic that he talks about that J.D. Vance was this used car salesman that said a bunch of things with no substance. That's literally what he just did. He doesn't address any of the specific things I said. Again, he claims that I'm misrepresenting the arguments that he made. I'm not. He's speaking in empty platitudes. Everything you said about me is a lie and it's a misrepresentation, and no, it's all untrue. Now he does try to make two arguments that I'll talk about specifically surrounding this. The first argument is he says that it's important because it gives funding. Well, all the other bills that were suggested, for example, Trump trying to give funding to them, trying to build the wall, etc., in 2019 that the Democrats shut down, also tried to give funding. The Republican bill also tries to give funding. The problem is it's not just a matter of funding. It's the fact that these Border Patrol agents, as they've said, yes, they do need more money, but it's they're being intentionally hamstrung by the Biden administration. He hasn't addressed the fact that this bill specifically allowed loopholes where Mayorkas himself and other people in the administrative state would be able to waive and have exemptions for people. We could see that they would have been likely to do that because they like these people coming in. As the person that's calling in, I forget your name, I'm so sorry, Alex, I think. As Alex, it's clear that he didn't think it was a crisis. It was fine with the record numbers of people we had coming in. That's the exact feeling that the Democrats and Joe Biden had. They only started to pretend to care about it when it came to 2024. He says that he says that this money would be good. Yeah, I'm sure money would be good, but we could see even without the money that he's suggesting that this bill is necessary, the executive orders that Trump had these numbers far lower than the numbers that we had of Joe Biden. And the Republicans passed a bill that had more teeth, and you could see what the response is. Democrats don't actually want a bill with teeth because they want the bill that has the loopholes and all of that stuff that would have made the bill worthless in the first place. That's why they wanted a bill like this in the first place, because it had these loopholes. It would have been enshrined in law. It did fund the NGOs. It did make sure that like 5,000 or something would be able to come in a day. It did. You said wrong. It doesn't fund the NGOs?
Your framing you have of this.
Okay, so then you interrupted erroneously because you're just saying what I'm saying is factual. You're just saying that you disagree with the framing of it. Now, again, it's ironic because he's the person who seems to be hyper-focused on this bill, but it's quite evident that I know more about what's in that bill than him, who's using this as the whole reason for an excuse as to why the Democrats did nothing when they controlled the show for 2 years.
You are lying about the bill, You're lying.
What part did I lie about?
You were lying about the funds. You were coping about the funds.
So you're telling me
the funds aren't going to do anything. Actually, you're saying the funds.
You said what part did I lie about? What part did I lie about the bill? You said I said where did I say the funds are not going to do anything? Show me, quote me where I said that. Where did I say the phrase the funds will not do anything?
It had to have been at least 10 seconds ago, maybe 15
Okay, and I said the direct words, the funds aren't going to do anything. That's what I said. And you're like, that's not true, that's a lie. The funds will do something. That's the argument that you're making? No, you said lie specifically when I said it funds NGOs. You said that's a lie. Does it fund NGOs? We'll go step by step. Here's the things I said. Does it fund NGOs?
Does the bill fund NGOs?
Yes.
What NGOs do they fund, and what is the purpose of the
question
funding?
I was asking was, does the bill fund NGOs?
Oh, sure, but what is the purpose of the NGOs?
The bill funds NGOs.
What is the
so I was correct
what are the NGOs doing, and what are they doing? Because the framing
largely
is the
a lot of
purpose
these groups. Now, why they do it's irrelevant because we're going to get to specific things, but it is true that the NGOs are intentionally helping people come to the border and giving them instructions on how to claim asylum and get through here, right? That's one of the reasons this would be bad, because it literally funds the organizations that are helping so many of these people come to the border.
Okay. So the NGOs that are helping them with the legal process.
So the next thing I said was that it allows like 5,000 something a day or something like that. Yes or no? Is that true?
So you don't want them facilitating the legal process?
I asked you a specific question. Yes or no? You said what I said was a lie. You said that the claims I said about this bill was a lie. Yes. So when I said, okay, so it does allow 5,000 something. You acknowledge that. A day.
Yeah. Yep. Until Biden can shut down the border. Until Biden can shut that border down completely.
Does it provide for people in the administrative state like Mayorkas to give special exemptions?
The administrative state?
Yes.
So you believe in the so Project 2025 specifically talks about the administrative state.
Wow, that's
very
cool.
Interesting, Rob.
I've also heard Bill Clinton use the term administrative state, so I must be a Democrat as well.
So is this a deep state?
What does this have to do?
What does administrative state mean, Rob? What does administrative state mean?
Administrative state means the people in the executive branch that are tasked with being people that are in the cabinet that are able to make these decisions.
No, that's not what that means.
Okay, then you define what I meant by administrative state.
You know exactly what you meant by when you talk about
administrative state. What I'm talking about is there are people in these agencies, such as Mayorkas, that are happy with the amount of people that we're coming across, and this gives them the ability to have exemption power. So because we already saw their record of 2021, 2022, of 2023, of believing like you do, that this wasn't a problem, that the framing of MAGA was wrong, that they would continue to employ that when they had ultimate authority to do so, because it was enshrined in this law to give them exceptions. Yes, they did. My question to you is, you made the declarative, you interrupted interrupted me to say that I was lying about the things that I said this bill did. So far, you have conceded that I was correct about funding the NGOs.
No, I know I didn't.
Conceded, so it doesn't fund NGOs. You can't even be honest about what you just said. You just admitted, yes, it does fund the NGOs. Then when I say you admitted that, you say, no, I didn't admit that. So I'll ask you again for clarification. It's clear that you accuse me of not arguing in good faith. You're duplicitous and even benign answers. I will ask again for clarification. I will ask again for clarification. Did this bill fund NGOs? A yes or no will suffice.
Yes, to help immigrants cross the legal manner.
So then when I said it funds NGOs, and you said I was a liar, and then you said yes, and then I said okay,
you're a liar on
and
the
then
funding.
you said
You're a
yes,
liar on the funding.
and then when I said, oh, but you said yes, and you said I didn't say that, and then I asked you again, you said yes, so you've now waffled on this 3 times. So one, I said that it funded NGOs, you've conceded that's true. Second, does it allow exemptions for it doesn't trigger until 5,000 or so come a day?
So when the NGOs, that's a legal process for crossing. You support legal crossing directly?
Second question.
Do you support legal crossing of the border?
No, I do not support that. The NGOs.
So you don't support legal immigration
either.
either.
What you're doing is trying. You accuse me of being a liar, and
you support legal immigration?
You accuse me of being a liar, and all the substantive points that I said were true. You can't argue that, and so now you're trying to deflect.
Point?
And you're saying, okay, it does fund NGOs, but that's a good thing. The substantive points there are the following things I said. One, it funds NGOs. After some waffling, you had to concede that yes, it does fund NGOs, and now you are waffling. You said yes, it does. Then you said no, I never said yes. Then you said yes, it does. That is the definition of waffling. You are directly changing your answer. The second thing I said was that it allows an exemption. It doesn't really trigger until there's 5,000 or something a day, some number. You acknowledged, yes, that's true. That part of it was true. The third part I said was it allows people like Mayorkas in the administrative state, people like under Mayorkas in that office, to give exemptions. Your answer to that is that true or not?
You're spinning so much, dude, because
I'm not spinning.
Number one,
these are the same arguments I've made about this bill since the first time you brought it up that you have not addressed. You have accused me of lying, so I'm just asking you whether or not I made basically 4 points. So the first 2 points you have been forced to concede were true. So now we're on to point 3. Did it give powers for Mayorkas and people?
Rob, the more you talk, that doesn't mean you win. You know this, right?
I understand that. That's why I'm asking you simple. That's why you interrupted me is the point I was making, and you said that I was lying. Now the burden is on you to show I was lying. I made 4 claims. So far, we've gone through 2 claims, and it turns out I wasn't lying. Now we're on claim 3. I'm asking you, did this bill give exemption power to Mayorkas where he could have exemptions for certain people that cross the border? Yes or no?
I was referring to the lying about the framing of what I said, because we're having a meta conversation about the conversation, because you're layering this thing instead of just addressing what is saying at the surface. You're going to have mini conversations about the conversation. I'm not interested in that. I will literally flare out with this.
You can flare out. So now you can say, sure. So now you can say, so he interrupted me. Now you could go back to being quiet. So when I said that this bill did these sort of things, and he said, you're a liar, then we had to painstakingly go through and say, okay, what am I lying about? Then he defaults back to, okay, the things I said are technically true. It's just that my framing of it is a lie. That's the problem. My framing of it's
yes.
So the things
there
that
you go.
I said, the things that I said about last chance, you already interrupted me to call me a liar, and then we're made it full of.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying right now.
If you can't contain yourself, then I'll be forced to mute you again. Now, one of the things that I think was funny was when I mentioned this before, you asked me to mute you and then complained when I complied with your request, which is also funny. So I'll go back to the point I was trying to make. It's hard to keep a train of thought when you have someone interrupting, calling you a liar, and then when you go painstakingly through the claims you made, they're forced to admit, okay, you're telling the truth about all that. I just disagree with your framing of it. So you can see sort of when it comes to the substance of talking about the specific bill, he hasn't really said anything. He just says, it gives money. I've already addressed that. Then he makes this second argument that's now going to be an excuse for why the Democrats didn't do anything in 2021, 2022. He says, well, it's because Manchin and Sinema. Nonetheless, Biden was the person in charge. He was running the party. Why couldn't he get them on board with anything? Is the argument really going to be? Last chance. It's not a matter of being a dictator. It's not like he has to break their arm. The executive is supposed to actually have the people underneath him be the party leader and get something accomplished. It's on him whether or not he could get something accomplished to deal with the border. The truth is, because like Alex here, who's called in, he didn't think it was a crisis. Alex has already given you the answer. Alex shows himself that he's like, actually, I didn't have a problem with those numbers. I think that it was being misframed. I think it was bad the way MAGA was framing it. Yes, that's exactly my argument. That's how Biden fell. That's why you can't point to the substance substantive bills that Biden was suggesting be pushed through. I'll allow him to try to do that when he gets a chance to speak. He can say, oh, this is the bill that Biden tried to put that would have had more security. And then Manchin and Sinema said, no, sorry, Joe Biden, we won't go along with that. I'll allow him to give the example of that bill. I certainly will. Then when it comes to the debate proper, like he says that Vance didn't have any substance and he just starts to prattle on with these empty platitudes about MAGA and things like that. Vance had far more substance than you saw from Walz. It's objective to anyone that was watching. He then proceeds to just make these excuses like, well, of course, Vance, he's a debater. He's a debater. That's it. He went to Yale. Right. These are giving excuses for why he performed better than Walz. So I am going to get out of here by 11:30, so I'll give you a chance to respond to all of this. But I have to say, like, with one of the things I always think is funny when dealing with someone like you is it's not just that you're like not doing so hot, particularly on the substance of the things we're talking about, but it's your arrogance while you're doing so poorly that I find incredibly amusing. And so I'll give you a chance to respond to all this, but know that I'm very much enjoying this interaction. And I'm glad that you think you're doing well and you're using these buzzwords that you're doing, but you're doing very poorly. You don't even understand the fundamentals of the bill that you're talking about. And you're actually waffling on whether or not you say things like, I never said that it funds NGOs, and then I'm forced to go through it. And then you complain that I'm getting so meta talking about these specifics. When you call someone a liar and they ask you, well, what part did I lie about? And you are forced to say, well, it's just a framework, and you have to waffle continuously. You can see how the debate gets drugged down in the mud with things like this. But go ahead, you have a chance to respond, and then this will be your last chance to respond. So we'll give you up to 5 minutes here, and then I do have to get going at some point tonight. So go ahead. Here it comes with the substance. Here we go.
Yes. I really do appreciate when you give my arguments to your audience in the play-by-play, like as if they're not listening. That's my personal favorite. Like as if we're not talking to each other in like a one-on-one conversation, and we don't have hundreds and hundreds of people watching us right now. So the play-by-play back is really interesting. I'm sure your audience appreciates that, and having it MAGA-splained to them, because they just can't hear me on what I'm saying. That's very adorable. I do like that debate tactic. I will remember that one in the future. I do think it is very important when debating to have a back and forth in good faith. I mean, we didn't really have good faith from the beginning. You were muting me. I mean, I could have did better, not like talking over you, but I mean, you were just kind of talking and being loud with your talking. And when I would explain the fundamental disagreement I have, because I mean, our disagreements are fundamental. Like, I am not a Trump supporter. I am not you. I don't live in right-wing world like you do. I used to. Trust me, I grew up Fox News watcher. I grew up, I told you, you're going to call it cope or whatever, but I grew up in the same position you were in, and I came away from it. So I fully understand the beliefs and positions that you have and how you get them. But when I'm debating you and I'm talking to you directly, and the way you repackage what I'm saying to you, and I'm arguing every single point you're making, is, I don't know if that's a lasting tactic or how people are going to engage with you on the left. And I'm not even as far left as many would be, but I'm just recently getting into the space myself. But I was arguing every point, specifically with the U.S. southern border, and I know that MAGA will focus on this, and Trump supporters like focusing on the southern border because it is the only issue that you have to run on in the 2024 election. But that is also by design, because Donald Trump ensured that would happen by killing the border bill that would have at least addressed the concerns, because you would have needed bills. You would have needed more bills. This wasn't going to be the fix-all. This wasn't going to be the bill to end all bills, and the U.S. southern border would be cured now, and everything is great. No, this would have been a bill. There would have been more bills, more legislation done, more work done in the government, which is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to go to work for us, and they're supposed to pass bills for the American people that are going to directly address our concerns. So to say that it should come from the executive, as if it's like America's a dictatorship and not working with our Congress, is very, very frightening to me. And yes, our debate that we started with J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, I already said J.D. Vance did be optically confident. I agree with that. Like he came across, he was able to be quick and snappy, which is very important in a debate. I've noticed debates, when it comes to presidential debates, vice presidential debates, you have to be more entertaining than the other person. People are waiting for a quickness. They don't want long-winded arguments. They don't want to hear actual policies and legislation. They want someone who's going to get clickbait. And that's why you specifically think Tim Walz lost, because because he wasn't attacking JD Vance. He was more so addressing the questions and the substance of the questions, which I feel, at least how I vote, is very important to do. Like I clickbait and click farming is fun, and it's cool to do for TikToks and Reels and the internet, but I'm trying to listen to some substance. So when it came back and forth, just in conclusion, I know you said you got to go, so I don't want to take your time too much. And again, thank you for having me on your show regardless, even though we do have fundamental disagreements on this and it got a little heated. I do appreciate you and your audience's time for having me over here. I just feel that on the substance of the debate, Tim Walz won when answering the questions. JD Vance didn't give a single specific answer to any question. Tim Walz was very specific with his answers, and even to the point of the foundation of like why I've switched completely from, I mean, I'm speaking to you personally as a voter now and not someone with the platform, but me personally, why I've switched from the Republican Party to voting Democrat this year is Donald Trump and January 6th. And yeah, I know that you were talking to your other guests that you have no interest in January 6th, but I'm telling you the majority of the country still does. And that was a very, very dark day in American history where Donald Trump tried to overturn the results of the election and send a mob at the Capitol to try to physically stop the electoral process. And I just view that as the antithesis to the United States. So I will be voting happily against Donald Trump, and maybe the Republican Party can get their act together again someday, but that is not going to be this year.
Okay, thanks so much for calling in. I'll address your comments here. You can stay in the chat if you want, but yeah, I mean, again, I hate to use this again, but remember the quote in Billy Madison where he's like, "You've said nothing in your rambling. We're all dumber for having listened to it." No addressing of substance whatsoever. The irony, of course, being that you talked about wanting substance through interactions and debates. Just empty platitudes. I used to be Republican. You're MAGA. Blah, blah, blah. And then, like, it's just nothing. You didn't address any of the specific things I said about the bill. You didn't address any of the things I said about the fact that Joe Biden, you continue to not do so. You just sort of went on about these platitudes over and over. Well, it was bipartisan and you know, you're lying and you're the way you frame to your audience, and like it's just nothing. There's nothing there. It's just hot air. I do appreciate you calling in. I do. I don't have any hard feelings. I enjoy interactions, even like this, that I think there wasn't much substance to. But I find it amusing, and I enjoy debating people. This is the primary thing that I like doing, and the reason I stream is for entertainment. So I wish you no hard feelings. I'd be happy to talk to you again. We could set up a moderated debate if you want, or we just have a conversation like this. No problem whatsoever. I wish you well in your endeavors, but I think that you were overly arrogant and very lacking on substance, if I'm being quite honest. And I think that, unfortunately, the immigration debate proves it. And I think that a lot of what's going on is that it's unfortunate to me because a lot of people just won't admit what they really feel. I think it's not too difficult to intuit that what you really think is you were happy with the border. You were. There may be some things that you would say, well, actually, I think we should facilitate these people coming in and being legally allowed here faster. But as far as the amount of people that were coming, you were happy with it, and you wanted them to be left into the country, and you probably even...
Rob, that's a bad faith argument.
Okay,
and
that's what I'm intuiting. That's what I'm intuiting. I'll give you 20 seconds to respond to this. You were upset with the amount of people that were coming at the border then. You thought many of them should have been sent packing, and you were upset with the amount, or you were okay with the amount?
I would neither, I would say. There's a fundamental problem with the asylum. I'm not indifferent either. I'm answering your question. There's a fundamental problem with the system and of the asylum seeking, and it needs to be handled. You can't wave a magic wand to fix it. You can't militarize the U.S. southern border to fix it. That's why I think I was being very good faith with you and your audience that I fundamentally disagree with your position on the border entirely. And I said that multiple times, Rob. And I said that to you multiple times.
I understand you disagree with my position on the border. What I'm saying is we could see the amount of people that were coming. Do you think that was way too many people that were coming? Yes or no will suffice.
I don't. No, I don't.
Okay,
no.
So that's what I said, that you were okay with the amount of people that were coming. And then I'll ask you a follow-up question, which seemed to be the other thing that you objected to. Most of these people, barring like any severe criminality or something, I'll give you the good faith on that you're not saying, oh, this guy was a bin Laden follower, bring him in. But most of those people, barring that sort of stuff, you would have wanted to legally be allowed to remain in the United States?
Wrong.
Okay. What would the process that you would advocate for be?
More money for asylum judges, more security, because that's what that bill would have handled. It would have handled the process in the back.
So you want, but your goal would be to have more judges to send these people packing.
Yes, Rob. Yes.
Okay. That surprises me. I'll take you at your
Well,
word.
Rob, that's my position. Rob, that has been my position. Like, you didn't even let me explain my full position on it because you were talking over me. Like,
it is.
That's why I said, Rob, I fundamentally disagree with you on the border. And I think I even said it during the debate. I agree there is a problem at the southern border, but I feel that it's in the asylum process and it's so backlogged, which is why I feel it was very important that bill passed so that way we get asylum judges and resources to mitigate those problems, because they're not just going to go away. Those asylum, because they're in the country, Rob, right? There are those people that are seeking asylum are in the U.S. right now. I don't disagree with you there. But in order to have them face a judge and be decided if they can continue to stay in the country or go back to wherever they came from, if they're a bad actor or a criminal, they have to face that judge, and we need those resources. But what about and bad money to
actors?
Do so.
What about ones that aren't bad actors and criminals? Should they be left in or not?
So how do you mitigate that? Are you going to have vigilantism?
What I'm asking you is, it seems that there's this huge amount of people that are coming, and we have potentially we have no idea to the tune of like 20 million people. Some people say there's 10 million illegals. Some people say there's 30 million. That's how disparate we are in that number. We have hundreds of thousands that are coming. The number dramatically increasing under Biden. You seem to say, I don't think that number is really a problem. Like you're sort of indifferent to the amount of people. You're like, I don't think it's really a problem. And so then I'm like, okay, what someone like me is concerned with is, it seems like what the Biden administration is, ultimately they want those people in. And then as Chuck Schumer said, he wants to give them a path to citizenship. So I already got you to admit, like, I don't really have a problem with that amount of people are coming. I just want them to be processed faster. And so then my follow-up question is...
That's not what I said either, Rob. No, wrong. That's not what I said either. And
did you say yes or... Okay, let's break it down. Let's break it down. Instead of me saying, you said this, and then you saying, we said this, let's break it down in little parts. Let me break it down. No, I will break it down in little parts. Did you say that you don't have a problem with the amount of people that we saw coming during the Biden administration? Yes or no?
I don't see it as the same issue as you do, because
that's not the question. That's not the question. Now you're going to say, well, it's not the same as you see it. That implies you know it how I see it, and it leaves room for ambiguity of not answering the question with a yes or a no. I'll ask you again. Did you have a problem with the amount of people that were coming, that we saw?
I have a problem with the backlog. I have a problem with the backlog.
Why can't you answer the question? Why can't you answer the question?
Because I disagree with you fundamentally on the framing of the question.
It has nothing to do. What part of the framing do you disagree with?
The majority of people that are coming into the country and staying here illegally are coming through a visa process and staying.
What does that have anything to do? That has nothing to do. You're intuiting framework that I've never mentioned. Never once did I say anywhere, most of these people are the people that are illegals here.
I know you're not saying it because
we disagree.
I know you're not, Rob. I know you're not.
It has nothing to do with the frame. It has nothing. When you say you disagree, you say that you can't answer the question because you disagree with the framework, you're then implying some sort of framework that I've never said. I'm asking a simple question.
Rob, because
now let me finish. I'm asking a simple question because you keep saying I'm misrepresenting you. So I'm making it as simple as possible. Asking a yes/no question. Did you have a problem with the mass increase in the numbers we saw under the Biden administration? Why can't you just say, no, I don't think that number is a problem. I think the backlog's a problem that they're not being processed. Or yes, I thought that was way too many people coming. Why can't you say either of those?
Because why do you want me to say what you want me to say? Like, why do you want me to have a narrative that you want? Why aren't you just listening to what I'm saying?
I am listening to what you're saying, and what you're saying is nothing. What you're saying is, this is what you're saying. I'll steelman your position. I'm not taking a stance on whether the amount of people that were coming, that we saw coming, was good or bad. I don't take a stance on that. What I do think is there's a problem with the backlog. That is not answering the question that I'm saying. My fundamental criticism is actually the Biden administration didn't have a problem with the amount of people that were coming in. That's what I'm saying. I suspect that you feel the same way. You say, no, that's a misrepresentation of me. I say, okay, so are you saying that number was too much, that you had a problem with it or not? And you won't answer. Originally, you said, no, I'm not saying that it was a problem. Now you're saying, well, I don't agree with the framework. How can we have a conversation if I don't know what your beliefs are because you're unwilling to answer simple questions like this? Go ahead and ask me, Rob, did you have a problem with the number of people that were coming through the border on these encounters under Joe Biden? Yes. Yes, I absolutely had a problem. I thought it was way too many people. You see, then it's easy for you to understand what my position is, and you could then talk about that and talk
Because
about what I believe.
these issues are not simple yes or no answers and questions, Rob. Like
It
these
is
are
a
not
simple yes or no
It's
question.
really
For
not.
example,
It's
let me
not.
give you potential answers. No, the number specifically I don't have a problem with. Now, clearly there's a point where it could get to a number that would be overwhelming, but the only problem that number seems bad right now is because of the problem with the backlog. If we had more judges, the fact that this amount of people were coming wouldn't really be a problem because we'd be able to process them and send them back. See how I answered no and then articulated what the framework of that would be? Or yes, even if we had plenty of judges and things like that, this amount of people is not sustainable, and it would be a work overload even if we incredibly increase the funding. It's not sustainable to have
That's
this
an
amount of
opinion.
people coming to the border, particularly when many of the people that are coming, as human rights organizations have said, are victims of sexual trafficking, drug mules, and other things like that. So yes, even if we did process these people more, those numbers themselves are problematic on their own. You see how that was another answer? Both of those answers that
Both
I
of
gave
those are
definitively
highly partisan
answered.
answers. Those are highly biased framed answers.
They're
and
not
actually
biased.
addressing
In
the
fact, I
concern.
suspect that your answer would be the first answer. That's what I would suspect your answer would be. But you can't answer. So I just, real quick before I leave you go, your stance is you refuse to give an answer as to whether or not you thought that the number of people that were coming across the southern border under Joe Biden was bad. You refuse to give an answer to that because there's more framing to it. That's your answer?
There's more context to it. There's more things that need to be done.
right,
It's
man.
not a one
All right,
issue.
thanks so much.
I know you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I know. You just want to. I know. You just
I
want
just
to
wanna-
line everyone up and just execute everybody at the border, but it's not going to happen.
Again, you go back to this sort of straw man. I never said line people up at the border and execute.
I know.
You're unwilling to
misrepresented my
answer the
arguments
most
the whole
basic
time.
positions, and
I literally
you've
did.
waffled
I literally
on.
answered it.
You did not answer. You
I
did
did.
not. You said your answer was I refuse to answer.
Wrong. I said that I also see that there's a problem at the U.S. southern border, and I think I've said that multiple times.
There's a problem. There is a problem at the border, right? That's absolutely. You did say there's a problem at the border. I asked if one of the things you have a problem with was the amount of people that were coming under Joe Biden. Now you're saying no. You're saying that's not a problem.
The people that are crossing the U.S. southern border, it's an asylum problem. The people that are seeking asylum in the United States,
is the amount of people a problem? Is the amount of people that came under the Biden administration?
On the asylum,
yes. So far you've said
on
no.
the asylum list that are seeking
so far you've said no. Then you said no. Then you said I'm not going to answer its framework. Now you're saying yes.
Are you gonna listen to what my argument?
Yeah, I'll listen to you change your argument again as you've done repeatedly. Go ahead, you can change your argument again. Now it is a problem. The amount of people that came is a problem. Go ahead.
The amount of people has been a problem that are coming across, and it's in the asylum. That's why it's been trying to be tackled by the Biden administration, but they keep fighting against MAGA Republicans in the House and Donald Trump on the back end to make sure that this stays a continuous problem because they don't want actually any solutions or legislation at the border. They don't want any policies to actually solve the U.S. southern border problem, and that's why this specific talking point has gone on for like 2 hours, and we haven't been able to talk about anything else.
Cool. If it was a problem, why didn't Biden speak of this? Why was he repeatedly signaling to the American people that there wasn't a problem at the southern border, that it was secure in 2021, 2022?
Because he was legislating for the American people, getting bills passed and getting.
What does that have to do with his statements and Mayorkas' statements that the border was secure? You have to lie and say the border is secure because you're passing the Inflation Reduction Act?
Sure. Okay. My argument on the U.S. southern border.
Come on, you know that's laughable. You admit that that's a laughable argument.
I don't even know if that's a valid argument to make. Like you're being bad faith with even my own arguments.
What are you talking about? You just said that the reason I said we saw the Biden administration and people like Mayorkas saying in 2021 and 2022 the border is secure. You're admitting actually no, there were way too many people coming. That's what you're admitting. That's not what they were saying in 21 and 22. So I ask you, why weren't they saying that? And you say because they were working on other legislation. And I say, but that's ridiculous. The fact that you have to say the border is secure and you had to lie or be wrong about that because you're working on other legislation, that's an absurd argument. And I'll allow you to respond, I guess.
Like the U.S. southern border and what we are trying to pass there and what the Democrats had, the Republicans could have led that, and they could have taken that position with the bill that was going to be passed and claimed a W on that, but they didn't want to. Yes,
2024.
I'm talking
specifically about 2021, 2022.
Why?
Because that was when the crisis began.
Is the crisis not ongoing right now?
Yes.
Okay, so then when we're trying to fix the crisis right now, why is that? Why
That's
can't
an
we get
interesting
legislation to get
deflection.
through?
My argument is
It's not a deflection.
My
It's-
argument is,
it's
and
the
I've been the
substance
one.
of it.
I've been the one that's been arguing substance on this. What I've argued is that this bill was bad. I outlined things that I thought specifically was bad in the bill. Not everything, but I did outline 4 main points that I was making why I thought it was bad. And I said that at least we could see that the Republicans tried to do stuff and Trump tried to do stuff. He was stymied in 2019 through shutdowns from Democrats that wanted this sort of border crisis to occur. Now, my question became, if the numbers, if you think they were a crisis, why did Biden not say they were a crisis until an election year? Why didn't he say it was too much in 2021, 2022, and 2023?
So the lack of comments is what you're going with,
Not
because
just the
right-wing
lack-
media were
not-
focused on it,
not
and,
just the
and
lack-
right-wing
not-
podcasters are focused on it.
And not just a lack of comments, though your answer there is very telling. So the reason that Biden didn't say anything is because he was afraid Joe Rogan talked about it or Tucker Carlson?
Yeah, I would have to look into the first couple of years, and I will give you this: like the first couple of years of Biden's administration, whether he made comments or not, I will happily do that research for you and get back to you on that.
Okay.
I actually will. And but when it comes to the full administration and the full 4 years of the presidency, and at the very end, he was willing to work with Republicans and the Senate-led Republican with James Lankford to get a serious border aid done. And you want to cope and say that it wasn't a good bill, and I just fundamentally disagree. And I think it was a very good bill that was going to at least step in the right direction to address the concerns at the southern border, which are overwhelmingly the asylum seekers and the backlog systems that are keeping people on that list and not actually deciding whether they can stay in the country or whether they can leave.
All right,
Or
yeah,
they have to
man. Like again, you're just back to the same talking point. You don't have an answer as to what
That is,
Biden
I mean, I just gave you
not
an
answer.
answer.
You've
So
literally
hold on.
said
How
that.
is what I'm saying?
Yeah, if you let me finish, you don't have an answer as to why Biden was out to lunch on this in 2021, 2022, 23. You just are like, well, he tried in 2024. My entire criticism is that he didn't really care about this. He rescinded the issues. He didn't have a problem with the amount of people that was coming. He continued to, in his administration, continued to say the border was secure, that it was a problem being blown out of proportion. They didn't do anything until it was an election year, and then they pushed for this bill, a bill that I'm arguing on substance. I'm the only one talking about the actual things on the bill. Well, I think it was bad, and it would have been enshrined in law for years, which meant that if Republicans would win or Trump would win, that they would have difficulty rescinding that. And the same people that are saying, actually, the Haitian immigrants are legal because of the policies that Joe Biden would be making that argument with saying that we have to allow 5,000 or something in a day because they'd say Republicans signed for this. Now they're legal. You have to let them in. It enshrined that into law. Those are reasons that this would be bad. And you just keep going back to the exact same talking point. You just ignore 2021, 2022, 2023, and you're like, yeah, but in 2024, bipartisan bill, Lankford would have did good. I disagree with you. That's it. And you're not talking substantively addressing the things I'm saying. It
sounds like projection. It sounds like projection because I am addressing. It's all projection because I'm directly addressing everything.
You are not addressing. You're just saying, I disagree. I think the bill was good. That's your addressing. So, for example,
No,
when I say,
I've given
for example,
specific examples of how the
when
bill would
I
help.
say, for example, that it allows some 5,000 something a day in, your specific answer was?
My specific answer to allowing 5 good, then the Biden can shut the border down with executive action.
So
And
now your
President
argument
can
is, first off, that's the first time that you've ever addressed that whatsoever. And your answer is laughable. So now your answer is, okay, this bill allows 5,000 a day in, but Biden could then take the executive step of having an executive order on top of the bill that he's pushing for that actually would shut down the Biden.
No, that's what the bill said that he would be able to do. Like that's what's in the bill. That would give him the power to do it. That was one of the talking points.
But it wasn't until the bill wasn't enforceable until a certain number of people were met a day. So it had to be over a certain period of time. So many people had to enter until
well, no
they can
kidding.
enforce the
So like,
provisions
so
of the
you
bill.
want the border just completely stone cold shut down. Nobody crosses.
That's what I prefer. But there could have been a bill that wasn't that strong.
So that's your argument.
Well,
so
let me be clear. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. I don't think that means that someone who's traveling with a visa from Mexico to visit in the United States shouldn't be allowed to get in. But I do think that the problems we're having right now with immigration are so significant that there needs to be a temporary halt, particularly to the asylum procedures, and so that we shouldn't allow any of these people in because of the advantage that's been taken of it, particularly by Democrats that have been pushing this because they're trying to import these people. However, there could have been a bill. There could have been a bill that didn't go as far as I want, but that it certainly would have been far more secure than leaving thousands of people a day in. And when I bring that up and you're like, well, if those people decided to come in, then Biden could just through executive fiat say, no, never mind, I'm shutting down the border.
Isn't that what you want?
No. What I want is a bill that
you don't want Biden to shut the border now?
I don't want a bill that hamstrings our administration's ability to secure the border until 5,000 or something a day come.
So
No, I don't want
You want
that.
dictatorship then. You want
No,
executive
that is not a
action.
dictatorship. Let me
That is a
repeat my-
dictatorship.
So your argument is because I'm opposed to a bill that allows 5,000 illegals a day to cross our border before enforcement action could be taken, that I want a dictatorship. How about I want a bill that only allows 20? That's the bill I want. That's not a dictatorship.
So you're going to go down there, Rob, and stand there and
What
make
does this
sure only
have to
20
do?
cross?
You're completely,
What happens
again,
if
this is
21
empty
cross?
platitude.
What happens if 21
Then
cross?
we enforce the border. Wait, what happens if
What does that
5,000?
mean? What does enforce the border mean? What does
Okay,
enforce
you
the
tell
border
me.
mean?
The same
No,
provisions.
you tell me. No.
Okay,
You
I'll tell
me
you. You
because
ready?
I support the bill. I supported that bill. You didn't.
Okay.
What does securing the border look like to you?
Sure. The same thing happens once 21 reach is the same thing that happens after 5,001 reach in the bill that you want.
The border shuts down. Biden
Okay,
has the
cool.
authority to shut the border down.
Cool.
What do you
That's
mean?
what I want the bill. 20 come in, then we have the authority to shut the border down. Cool. Same thing.
Only 20. That is
Yep.
such an unrealistic. You know, like how you've
What's
never
the
been to the
difference?
U.S. southern border. You have no idea how long it is.
So now when you made this big, but how would you enforce it? What would you do? Literally, it's the same mechanisms that you want to enforce through. I'm just saying the number of people that we should allow in should be grossly.
It's not a reasonable number. It's not even a reasonable number. But
Now you
which
make
is
a different
why
argument. 5,000 is not a reasonable
it's the
argument.
same argument. No, fuck
I want
that.
zero.
It's the same
I want
argument
zero
I've made
for
since the
asylum.
beginning, and where I say we
All right,
fundamentally
I can't stay here
disagree
all
on
night.
this issue.
We're going in loops. I can't stay all night. Thanks so much for calling in. We'll talk some other time.
Right.
See ya.
All right. Sounds good, buddy.